Kind of an alarming piece of news Thursday. The 49ers began their regular slate of practices. And typically the first practice of the week is on Wednesday, but they play Monday this week, so everything gets moved back a day. So the first practice was Thursday. The difference between Thursday's practice and like Tuesday's bonus practice is that Thursdays they have to give a participation report. Christian McCaffrey, limited in practice, not a huge surprise. With a calf injury, not a huge surprise. But also an Achilles injury? That's kind of disconcerting.
Yeah, I mean, it's all kind of connected, right? Like to me,
Is
it's your calf is connected directly to your Achilles.
Oh, you mean literally? Got it. Okay.
Yeah, like it's not entirely surprising that the Achilles is part of the injury. I think, look, the 49ers know how important Christian McCaffrey is. Christian McCaffrey knows how, like he's not going to put himself at risk, I don't think. And look, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he's super at risk, but my feeling is that, the 49ers, given what their goals are, they're not going to put Christian McCaffrey at risk in a September 9th game. That could potentially cause him to miss the entire season. So I don't think this is like malpractice here. I know Achilles is a little bit troubling just because we know what a ruptured Achilles means. It's obviously not that. And I think Christian McCaffrey, given where he's at in his career too, like he wants to play for a long time. He wants to get another contract after his current one. I'm not super concerned. I think if it was a legitimate injury where he was at risk of suffering something really serious, any more so than normal, I don't think he would be playing. So
Sure.
He's had most of training camp off. From all accounts, the ramp up workouts that he's been doing while he has not been practicing have been relatively intense.
Mm-hmm.
And it sounds like the beat reporters who have been on site are talking like they expect him to be full go and unencumbered. So we'll see. I understand the initial concern and the sticker shock when you see an Achilles injury.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not super concerned about it yet.
It just was jarring that it went from, calf strain, he's going to sit out. They don't need him to play in preseason. He's just going to make sure he's healthy. He's going to be good to go week 1. They'll get him on the field. They'll ramp him up. It'll be good to go. By the way, also Achilles. Like, wait, what? That wasn't part of the deal.
Yeah.
That's just it. Like you said, that word in sports just always kind of sends up a red flag, rings an alarm bell. And like you said, I very seriously doubt he would be practicing if the 49ers thought there was some major risk. But still, seeing that on the injury practice participation report raised my eyebrows a little bit for sure.
What is notable, though, Niners game Monday night at Levi's Stadium is obviously on grass, but they go to Minnesota and then play the Rams in LA the following 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Those are both artificial turf games.
Mm.
So just worth pointing out, maybe something we can talk about depending on how Christian McCaffrey looks. But
Sure.
Like with Jordan Mason and obviously all the other weapons that the 49ers have, we'll see about Isaac Orendo, obviously.
Dealing with a groin injury now, by the way.
Right, and he hasn't been practicing. It does. I mean, this is more about Jordan Mason and Deebo Samuel, who I have some feelings on, which we'll talk about when we get to our season predictions.
Mm-hmm.
I think the 49ers will be fine if the game plan isn't, okay, let's give Christian McCaffrey 25 touches. Like,
Sure.
They obviously have the weapons to have a relatively light Christian McCaffrey game.
Yeah. Yep. I'm right there with you. Another good note, Ricky Pearsall was out at practice and just, look, moving completely normally, which, I mean, no arm in a sling, no like favoring any part of, just totally normal, walking around in street clothes, tossing a ball to himself, walking around in practice. Just really cool to see. Really, really cool.
Apparently
I don't have a lot on it.
Apparently he told Kyle Shanahan that he probably could have played on Monday if needed. Obviously he's on an injured list and will have to miss the first 4 games of the season. But that is pretty wild. And I think just the overarching takeaway from the whole Ricky Pearsall ordeal incident is that it couldn't have, like, obviously getting shot is a horrendous thing to have to go through. But
Hmm.
in terms of getting shot in the chest, this is about as good of an outcome as you could have at the
Yeah.
end.
Yeah.
Like he didn't need surgery, no arteries, no organs, no ribs, no,
Yeah.
bones, like nothing that somehow he avoided any sort of encumberment coming out of that horrific situation. So um, kind of a minor miracle, it feels like, which is,
Yeah.
you know, pretty wild. Dude gets shot in the chest on Saturday and he's out at practice on Thursday, kind of just looking like himself.
Yeah, just hanging out. Pretty, yeah, really, really, really amazing. So, shout out to Ricky Pearsall, and hopefully the next update is that he's cleared to go in 4 weeks and is back on the field as soon as humanly possible. All right, let's get some predictions and takes before we look ahead to this Niners Jets matchup at Levi Stadium on Monday. Chris, why don't you start us off so I have an idea of how strong I need to make? I have some general things written down. I just need to know how far I'm leaning into these things. So you go first, and then
Yeah.
I will tailor my thoughts to your first take.
Okay. Um, I have Deebo Samuel having a 1,650-yard season, which is obviously a combination of receiving yards and rushing yards, and he's going to score 12 touchdowns.
Oh
And
my.
be right in the All Pro mix like he was in 2021 when he was
Mm.
named a first team All Pro and Pro Bowler. I kind of think the 49ers, like between Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel, it's going to be kind of like maybe for the next couple of years, the pendulum swinging a little bit. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that there's, Brandon Ayuk's game the style he plays seems more sustainable, right? But
Mm-hmm.
given that he didn't participate in the offseason program or really any of training camp, he'll be coming into the season with 4 practices under his belt. I just have a hard time believing that he's going to be an all pro and somebody who's going to have, 1,400-yard season. Meanwhile, Deebo
Mm-hmm.
Samuel has checked all the boxes you'd want him to clear in an off season, which is what happened in 2021 when he did have that great year. And it's what happened with Brandon Ayuk last year when he was arguably the best player on the practice field leading into the season. And he turned out that he had a really good season. I think
Mm-hmm.
Deebo Samuel is going to have a really good season. And obviously, there are limitations with route running. And he's not going to be a guy who, you're going to say, just, hey, man, just go get open, run your routes. Great. Like he's a guy who struggles to separate from really good coverage. But I think Kyle Shanahan understands how to maximize him despite those limitations. And the 49ers have so many other weapons that they could find ways to isolate Deebo Samuel and put him in those spots where he can get the ball in his hands and then make hay with run after the catch numbers. And so I think that's where we're headed. I think Deebo Samuel, this is probably his last chance to have this type of season unless he really evolves the way he plays.
Mm-hmm.
But I think based on the shape he's in, based on the training camp that he had, and just based on what's at stake for him, I know this. We sort of viewed this essentially as a contract season going in, and he restructured, and we still don't really have the details on that. And it might be that the restructure of his contract means he's with the 49ers for 2025 after, we thought this might be the year that he walks and they trade him in the offseason.
Mm-hmm.
Either way, it feels like there's a lot at stake for Deebo Samuel just from where he's at in his career and how he has not lived up to the expectations he set for himself after 2021. I think
Mm-hmm.
he's going to get back to those expectations. And I think he's going to be 1,650 yards, 12 touchdowns, an all pro type of guy. And everyone's going to remember, like, oh, yeah, this was a dude who looked like a Hall of Famer in 2021.
I don't. I'm. My only quibble here is the numbers. And I do think we're going to see more like splash plays from him. Where, I mean, we even saw it a little bit last year when it felt like the Niners were in a rut. It was just, all right, hey, throw it to Deebo and see if he does something. And that's that offensive spark. Like that's part of why he's so important. The thing that I'm looking at is 2021. He had 59 carries for 365 yards and 8 touchdowns on the ground. The next year, 42 for 232 and 3. Now, granted, that was in 13 games. And then last year, 37 for 225 and 5. His attempts per game have gone from 3.7 to 3.2 to 2.5. So I think we're gonna see less of him as a runner. I think that was he at 37 last year. I think that between 35 and 40 carry range is where he's going to be. I don't think we see him approach 60 again. And I think he's probably good for 5.5 or so yards a carry. So that's the only thing that I would say would hold me back from thinking he goes to 1,600 yards. But I do think it's going to be a monster season from him where he does lead the team in receiving. And I do think he still gets in the All-Pro mix because he's just kind of stamped as that dude. And I could see the narrative kind of being, well, Brandon Ayuk struggled out of the gate, and George Kittle missed a couple of games, and man, Deebo Samuel kept the Niners afloat. He had back-to-back 150-yard games, and that's something I could definitely see. So I'm with you in the spirit of it, but the exact numbers, I'm not there.
Think about it. I mean, and obviously health, I think, to me would be the biggest impediment. Because he does seem like he's in shape. He seems like he's engaged, which hasn't always been the case. But, to get to 650 yards, that's just under 100 all-purpose yards a game. I think he can get there, even if he isn't running the ball as much. And who knows? Part of, if Isaac Guerrero has to miss a bunch of time and they don't want Jordan Mason to be their every down back and Christian McCaffrey misses a game or two, Deebo has an opportunity to get a bunch of carries. So that's part of the calculus for the take also.
Okay, I'll start with the numbers-based take as well then. I think Brock Purdy is going to shatter his own single-season passing yards record.
his record from the one season he was a full-time starter?
Yeah, 4,208. Well, the 49ers single-season record. So he passed Jeff Garcia's single-season record last year with 4,280 yards. I think he goes 4,718 yards is the number that I've landed on.
4,700. Wow.
Yeah, man. So that's just shy of 500 more than he had last year. 500 more than he had last year would be 4,780. But he only played 16 games. And I think the Niners are going to be in a couple of spots this year where they need to throw it more than they did last year. Purdy only put it in the air 444 times. If he's going to be averaging 9+ yards an attempt, and he's throwing it 500 or so times, he'll cruise to that number. So 4,718 passing yards for Brock Purdy this year. I think the attempts are going to go up. I think the efficiency is going to stay there. And I think we're going to see a monster season from him.
Do you have touchdowns and interception guesses?
I'm going to go 38 touchdowns, 13 interceptions.
Whoa. Is Brock Purdy winning MVP in this scenario?
He might.
Those are MVP type numbers.
Yeah, man.
He was an MVP candidate with 4,280 yards, 31 touchdowns, and 11 interceptions. He led the league in yards per attempt at 9.6. So yeah, that he would be if your prediction is true. And honestly, I think there's a chance. I really do think there's a chance. If Deebo Samuel has a great season like we think he could have, if Brandon Ayuk is close to 1,000 yards, which remains to be seen, but I don't think Brandon Ayuk, because he held out, is all of a sudden going to have a 600-yard season.
Yeah, no.
But if George Kittle stays healthy, Christian McCaffrey stays healthy, if the Niners defense isn't as good,
that's a little bit what I'm banking on too.
Yeah, then they're going to have to pass a lot more often. So that'll be that's interesting.
So if
it sounds like you think Brock Purdy's going to have an MVP type season with those numbers.
Yeah, I think Brock Purdy's going to have an MVP type season as long as he has Kyle Shanahan and these weapons. To be totally frank, he averaged 9.6 yards per attempt last season, which is a ridiculous number. Let's knock it down half a yard this year. Let's take it to 9.1. To get to 4,700 passing yards, he would need to have 516 attempts, which would rank 27th in the NFL based on last year's stats.
Okay.
It's not an outrageous number of pass attempts. It would be a lot by the 49ers standards. They only attempted 491 passes as a team last year. But if their defense is a little bit worse and they're having to play from behind a little bit, or if they're getting in a shootout or two, their schedule is going to be really tough, where I do think they're going to be in some high scoring games. I don't think it's outrageous that Brock Purdy puts it up between 515 and 530 times and averages, 9-ish yards per attempt while doing it.
I like the idea of the passing game, the short, quick passing game, which is what Brock Purdy's really good at, or one of the things Brock Purdy's really good at, being sort of a replacement for the running game.
Yeah.
Because that allows you, I mean, that's how you can get Deebo Samuel the ball, right? Yards after the catch. That's how you can take a little bit of the load off Christian McCaffrey. And that's, I think that seems like a natural evolution. Now, my one pushback would be, will Kyle Shanahan allow that evolution to happen?
Sure.
Or is he still going to be like, nope, we're going to run the ball close to 50% of our snaps. We're going to do a lot of play action, and we're not going to be a spread you out, quick passing game team. I'm curious to see if Kyle Shanahan ever evolves away from that philosophy. Because I think the defense might force him to, because it might not be as dominant as it has in years past.
Yeah. Yep. What else you got?
Hinted at it in earlier podcasts. I think the secondary is going to be better than the defensive line. For the first time since really Kyle Shanahan has been coach here.
Yeah.
I just think you look at Charvarius Ward, all pro last year. I think Diamador Lenore is kind of knocking on the door of becoming a Pro Bowl type guy. I don't know if I've seen enough from him to say I feel confident that he's like an all pro guy. There are a lot of really good corners in the league right now.
It's so hard to be an all pro corner.
In a contract year, Diamador Lenore is, a big year for him would make him one of the most sought after free agent cornerbacks. And I think he's ready to take that leap and be somebody who gets a massive contract in the offseason, whether it's from the 49ers or elsewhere. I think Jair Brown might be good, like legitimately, like, I don't know that he's like a all pro but I'm getting sort of the safety version of Fred Warner. And obviously, look, Fred Warner is the best linebacker in football. I'm not saying Jair Brown's going to be the best safety in football, but when Fred Warner started as a rookie, and he started from the jump, so it was a little bit different because Jair Brown didn't start till later in his rookie season. But you just felt like, all right, this is a dude that knows what he's doing. He knows how to line up. He's not going to make like rookie mistakes. And he just seems to be made of the right stuff. I get similar vibes from that perspective from Jair Brown. So if he's a Jimmy Ward type free safety, and if you get Talanoa Hufanga back, if Malik Mustafa, is sort of that third safety that you think he can be, I just think if everyone stays healthy, the secondary could be the strength of the defense, or at least, Fred Warner is going to be the strength of the defense. Nick Bosa is going to be the strength of the defense regardless. But as a group, I feel the position group, I think the secondary is going to be better as a whole than the defensive line as a whole. And the 49ers are going to look like a little bit different of a team. They're going to be playing back to front instead of front to back, which is going to be somewhat of an adjustment for them. Yeah,
I am in full agreement with you. I'm going to tie in my next take here. I have Jair Brown making the Pro Bowl. I'm with you on Lenore. Charvarius Ward coming off an all-pro season. I don't think we're going to see him fall off as he enters his prime. And Jair Brown was a takeaway machine in college. He generated, I think, 3 interceptions in 7 games last year. We saw him in the preseason fly down to a running back had made a catch in the flat. I think it's the Raider game. And he just runs in and puts his hat on the ball, forces the ball out. I just think we're going to see that a ton from him this year. And if you're a safety who's putting up 5-6 interceptions, a couple of forced fumbles, you're gonna be on a good team. You're gonna be a Pro Bowl selection for sure. And I think he's going to be a key to the defensive shift that you're talking about.
Yeah.
I'm interested to see
I
too,
think,
just an aside, who the third corner is going to be.
yeah. And I feel good about the third corner spot, whether it's Isaac Yadam or Renardo Green
Yeah,
or even like Rocky Sin. Like they're far, like the 49ers, like Rocky Sin might not be like a great starter, right? But you would have felt better about Rocky Sin playing in like 2021 than you were like Josh Norman and, the group that they were trotting out there opposite Richard Sherman, right? When Richard Sherman was clearly not the same player. So I just think like the depth of the secondary is much improved, and I really like the talent. And look, to your point about Jair Brown being a Pro Bowler, like what did it take for Talanoa Hufanga to rise to start? It was a bunch of big plays in big games, right? It was like pick six in a primetime game and plays around the line of scrimmage and stuff. Like Jair Brown is going to be in a lot of marquee games, right? Starting Monday night. Like if Jair Brown has a pick against Aaron Rodgers, then like there aren't that many good safeties in the NFL, frankly. Like linebacker and safety, there's kind of a vacuum in terms of star power. And if Jair Brown is in some primetime games or some big Fox games or whatever, and has some interceptions and returns one to the house or whatever, like it's I don't want to say it's easy to be a Pro Bowler, but it would be easy in that scenario. Like you make a handful of big plays in a couple of primetime games as a safety on a potentially good defense like the 49ers have. Like that's the formula for going from kind of promising rookie to this is a Pro Bowl guy now. And that's what happened to Talanoa Hufanga.
Yep. Worth noting, he had an interception of Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl, just to further your point.
Right.
Stepping up in big games. I'll do one. I've got one. I think the 49ers are going to have 2 kick return touchdowns this year.
So who are they coming from?
Either Isaac Guerrero or I think we're going to see in a couple of big spots this year, Deebo Samuel return a kick, or maybe Brandon Ayuk, or maybe even Christian McCaffrey, depending on how the season's going. Maybe it's Jordan Mason. I think they have enough playmakers, and I think at some point...
Did you say Jake Cowing?
I did not. Jacob Cowing as well, though. They have enough guys who I think can be playmakers as kick returners, where if they figure something out, because I think what we're going to find is that the dynamic kickoff looks more like a run play. And I don't know if that means Kyle Shanahan gets involved or if Brian Schneider starts taking notes from the Niners offense and trying to devise ways to generate big plays on kick returns. I just think we're going to see a couple of times this year where the Niners in a big spot, like I said, whether it's any of those guys that I named, are going to get a seam on a kick return and house it. It would be the second time in 49ers history that they had multiple kick return TDs for in one season. I think the other one was 1962 or 63.
Was Ted Ginn the last one, or did he only?
No, I didn't do punt returns, just kick returns.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. Ted Ginn had that game that we did that Old Rush podcast on.
Yeah, week 1 of the 2011 season.
Yeah, good knowledge by you.
Thanks.
Yeah, I like it. That kind of leads into my next. I think that dovetailed nicely with my next one. I think Jacob Cowing and Dominic Pooney and Renardo Green are going to be contributors as rookies.
Okay.
Positive contributors. They're going to play a lot and be good players. And part of that for Cowing, I think, is in the return game. I think he's, I think there's a real chance he's better than Ray McLeod was for the Niners as a rookie. And Ray McLeod wasn't terrible. Obviously, they had the fumble in the Super Bowl. I don't know how much of that was his fault. But I mean, I guess it was. He deserves some blame. It was his fault. Okay. Point being, though, aside from that, I think Jake Cowing can be like a pretty good fourth receiver / return man as a rookie. I think he looks like a really promising draft pick for them. And I think Renardo Green, there's obviously concern about how many penalties he's going to be called for. If he can sharpen that up a little bit and be smart with the way he uses his hands, and he isn't just flagrantly, holding receivers all the time, I think he'll be able to avoid those flags and be a good player. Like the 49ers, I think, are counting on him to be a starter in 2025, and I think he's going to get a lot of run. And I think Dominic Pooney, I kind of think he's already their second best offensive lineman. Is that crazy? Do you think he's better than Aaron Banks?
I don't know. It seems like he's on a trajectory to be that, but I want to. I got to see him play.
He's better than Colton McKivitz.
Yeah, probably.
He's better than Colton McKivitz and Jake Brendel already. Right?
Probably. I just want to. Can I see it? Can I see it first?
Sure. I mean, he's going to get Quinnen Williams and Mook Dog. So
that's a great point. And Solly. The Jets are just a who's who of former Niners. It's kind of nuts. No, man.
Of revenge games.
So much revenge games happening. Yeah, I think he's on that path. I think if he's not just day one, I think he'll be there by the first few weeks of the season.
Yeah.
And
the other side of that, obviously, Ricky Pearsall, it's hard for me to just, I just don't know where the opportunities are going to come for him. Like, I think training camp was kind of a mess with the shoulder issue.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, what happened to him over the weekend is a whole separate thing. But if Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel are healthy, he's going to have to, is he going to be, even when he is healthy, are we positive he's going to be up on game days? Because you have Chris Connolly, given how impactful he is on special teams. You have Jay Cowing, obviously, being the return man and fourth receiver. You have Juwan Jennings being pretty well entrenched as a number 3 guy. Like, even when Pearsall's healthy, it's not guaranteed early on that he's going to be active. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad sign for him. I just think his opportunities are probably going to have to come if Deebo Samuel or Brandon Ayuk misses time, just because of the roster logistics it would take. And so for that reason, it's not to say I don't think he's going to be a good player, because I'm still very optimistic about what Ricky Pearsall could be in the NFL. I just don't know that it's going to come this year because of the circumstances.
Yeah, I'm fully on board with this. And it has nothing, I need this to be iterated and reiterated. This is not about Pearsall the player. This is about Kyle Shanahan's offense being notoriously hard for rookies, and this rookie wide receiver, remove the name, the draft status, whatever, this rookie wide receiver got ostensibly no practice time. And
no preseason time.
Right. No preseason games, very limited training camp practice. And during the season, reps for the 5th or 6th wide receiver on the roster aren't going to be super plentiful. So I'm with you, man. If they have a couple of injuries and he gets pushed up the depth chart, then they'll lean on him as much as they need to. But I think if the full receiving core is healthy, yeah, Ronnie Bell's going to be up over him on game days because of what he contributes on special teams. That he's had a full year in the offense, to be frank. So I think Pearsall is going to be fine. I'm not worried about his long-term trajectory. I just think, given how rocky his first couple of months as a 49er have been, it's just hard to get on the field as a rookie wide receiver in this offense. Like we've seen it time and time again how difficult it is.
And yeah, like it just kind of feels like, at least the first half of the season feels a little bit just kind of like, all right, we're just going to redshirt you.
Yeah.
And that's not to say, it can't work out, but that's what this feels like right now.
I have another one that kind of lines up with this, and it goes to the Pooney thing. And this is not a super high bar to clear, but I think this is going to be their best offensive line under Kyle Shanahan.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so I was trying to think about this, because the 19 team had, I always get my years mixed up here. The 19 team was Joe Staley. Was it Weston
Laken
Richburg
Tomlinson
at center? Laken Tomlinson.
Weston Richburg was hurt. It was
I think Pooney's going to be good. I think Aaron Banks in a contract year, I think you're going to see a better version of Aaron Banks this year. I don't think Colton McKivitz is going to be awesome, but I do think you're going to see an improved version of him in his second full season as a starter. This is what I should have done first: is get to the take, and then we can assess the 2019 squad. But that 2019 team was good for sure. But if Trent Williams is going to return to form and Aaron Banks takes a leap that I think he's going to take in his third season as a starter, I think Dominic Pooney's going to be a good player. We just talked about that. And then I think you see an improved version
Ben
of
Garland.
McKivitz. Ben Garland, F&A. Thank you. Yeah, Air Force, right?
Yes.
Air Force, yeah.
I knew what he looked like. I knew he wore number 63. I just
went to an academy.
His name is Ben Garland.
So yeah, I think this group, when the dust settles, is going to be better than 19. Thoughts? Opinions? Jake Brendel v. Ben Garland. Go.
Probably a wash. I think Pooney's better than Mike Person. Where you're going to get pushback from me is Colton McKivitz,
sure,
and Mike McGlinchey.
Sure.
I think it's. I mean, this one has the best player of any of them in Trent Williams. So you have the advantage. The advantage at left tackle. I think Aaron Banks is better than Laken Tomlinson at left guard. I think it's a wash at center. I think Pooney's better. So 3 of the 5 spots are better on this offensive line. So I think you have a compelling case.
I do think Banks is going to have to take a leap to be better than Tomlinson, but I think he can make it.
Okay.
In his 4th year in the league. I feel good about it.
He has been good.
Anything else?
I have a really important take that we need to talk about.
Yes.
Navage is just been an outstanding addition to my life. Why don't you talk about how it's impacted yours, Kyle?
Well, it's helped with congestion, and we all know how much congestion stinks. We're just talking about the 49ers offensive line. How hard is it for them to get their run game going when there's a ton of congestion up the middle and at the edges? It's brutal. So when I wake up in the morning, can't breathe out of my nose, I go right to the Navage because I need it to get through. I need it to get through the day. It makes breathing easier. It makes the sinus pressure that just builds up. It alleviates that. No more headaches. The Navage unit has been a game changer for clearing my congestion fast. So what Navage does is it uses a smooth saline flow and gentle patented nasal suction to clear nasal passages. I just hold up my Navage nasal cleaner right to my nose. I press start. It effectively unlocks and flushes mucus from my nasal passages, and it's fast. Works as fast as 30 seconds. And this is my single favorite part about Navage is that it is drug-free. It is a 99.9% pure saline salt pod. There are no medicinal side effects. It is so easy, and I use it every day.
Yeah, for me, it's really changed the way I've been able to sleep. Like for whether it's allergies or dust in the house or just being inside and air conditioning all day. Sometimes I can get congested, and sometimes it'll impact my snoring, and I just won't get the restful sleep that I need, and I'll wake up really tired, despite maybe sleeping for getting the 8 hours that I'm supposed to need. But it might just not be good quality sleep. And I've noticed since I've started using Navage and cleared up my nasal passages that I've just been sleeping a lot better and snoring a lot less. And I know the fiance has appreciated that a lot. So our listeners can order a convenient Navage starter pack, including a nose cleaner with batteries included and 30 original salt pods, everything you need to get started, plus a cleaning kit as a free gift with your order, but only by going to our exclusive URL, navage.com/candlestick, and using our promo code Candlestick. Again, to order your Navage free cleaning kit and for full product details, go to navage.com/candlestick. That's promo code Candlestick at navage.com/candlestick.
I have a take. I don't think people are going to like it. I think the Rams are going to win the NFC West. Just while we're here. I'm going to bury this one after the read and hope people skip it.
Sure.
No, so so I think the Niners are going to make the playoffs. I still think that's the case. But I think the Super Bowl hangover thing, and we talked about this last time, maybe at this point with the Niners, because of how many various ways they've experienced heartbreak at the end of a season, it doesn't land for them the way it would for a team that just kind of comes out of nowhere and, falls short. So the Eagles last year, somebody from the Eagles said they were 10-1 last year, but everybody was miserable because they had lost the Super Bowl. I don't necessarily think that's going to be the case for the 49ers, but they got pretty lucky injury wise last year, and factoring that in and just saying like, oh yeah, it's going to roll over again this year and they're going to be fine. They're going to have everybody healthy. That's really tough to bet on. I do think that the Brandon Ayuk, Trent Williams hold in / hold out is going to play a role for sure, at least early in the season, and in terms of just everybody getting on the same page and getting up to speed. It wouldn't shock me at all if we see the Niners kind of start slow this year, like we've seen in the past, where they're 4-4 at their bye week. And I know they've been really good in the second half of years under Kyle Shanahan, but their second half of the schedule I think is going to be really tough. I'm in on the Rams as far as the direction they're heading. I think that's going to be a really, really good group. I don't think the Cardinals are there. I don't think the Seahawks are there. But I think the Rams are going to be a really, really tough team to beat this season. And I think they're going to take advantage of the stumble out of the gate by the 49ers that I think is coming. And I think San Francisco winds up at like 10-7, making the playoffs, but I think they finish second in the division to the Rams.
Okay. I am with you in the sense that I think the Rams are going to be like a playoff caliber team.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the Seahawks, I like the Seahawks more than you do. I think the Seahawks kind of feel like the trendy sort of hipster pick that everyone's like, look out for this team. And maybe they
heard it last year. No, I'm not. I can't with the Seahawks. I can't get there.
I'm in on Mike McDonald much more so than very, very late career Pete Carroll.
Okay.
So we'll see. I think I can't predict anybody other than the Niners to win the division, because I think for me to make that prediction, I would have to say like they're just not going to be healthy, and I'm just not going to make a prediction about health, right? Like that.
Sure.
That's where I'm at. So I think the Niners still win the division, but my take kind of spinning off that, I think the NFC West is going to be the best division in the conference, and maybe even the entire league, because like you, I'm pretty high on what the Rams could be with, Matt Stafford throwing a Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua and having Kyron Williams. Like that is not an easy offense to defend. The question I would have about the Rams is, what are they like defensively now that their defensive coordinator is the head coach in Atlanta? And, obviously you have some pretty reasonable sized shoes to fill with Aaron Donald retiring. So I am curious about their defense. I still think the Niners are better and should be considered favorites to win the division. But I think, would it be crazy if the Cardinals won 8 games? Like, I don't think that would be crazy. I think a lot of people think the Cardinals are going to win like 4 or 5 games.
No, I think the Cardinals are going to be about 500.
Yeah, and the Seahawks I think are going to be right there. And like if you're around 500, you're right in the mix for the 7th seed in the NFC. So, I think my takeaway, I still think the Niners are going to win the division, but I think my takeaway would be the NFC West is going to be really, really good, and probably the best division in the conference, and maybe even the best division in the NFL.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I dig it. I like it a lot. I think that there's definitely a case that to make for that, especially if the Bills are down this year, and I'm not sure. I'm not buying the Jets just yet. Yeah, man. I don't hate it.
I think the best case would probably be the AFC North, but like I'm just kind of out on Pittsburgh as long as Russell Wilson and Justin Fields comprise their quarterback room.
Yeah.
And I'm just out on Cleveland because Deshaun Watson has quite literally been one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL since he went to Cleveland.
Crazy.
So,
I will say for to push back on my own Rams NFC West prediction, that is derived from just the betting market and looking at values. But also there's a chance, and we talked about this on the last pod, but just to reiterate, the Niners might just be so talented that none of any of this matters. It might just be like, yeah, there might be a Super Bowl hangover, and maybe they start 1-3 and then finish 13-4. Sure, man. That might all not matter.
There was something interesting. I'm not a huge power rankings guy, but I just did a quick Google search of power rankings before this podcast. A lot of outlets have the Niners like third, fourth, fifth, behind the Chiefs, and even behind like the Packers and Lions, which, like I don't agree with, but I can understand. But then PFF has the 49ers number one overall. And the difference there being PFF tries to be, very analytical, very, analysis based, numbers based. And like PFF is not factoring into a quote unquote tumultuous training camp.
Yeah.
When they're doing their power rankings, they're like, all right, who's the best team? Who has the best roster? Who has the best coach? Like who plays the best football? And so I think that dichotomy to me is interesting because you have a lot of people who are like, I don't know, the Niners were without Trent Williams in training camp, and Christian McCaffrey was hurt, and Brandon Ayuk was holding in, and all these different things. But the roster is still the roster.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. Like, predictions are predictions. Like no one really knows. But I think it's just interesting to be like, there's a line of thinking where, the Niners can't overcome everything they dealt with in training camp versus like, regardless, they're still the best roster.
Yeah. And that's, like I said, maybe they're just so overwhelmingly talented that the Super Bowl hangover thing doesn't matter. They can withstand an injury or two. Brock Purdy, the thing that I don't think has gotten talked about enough is the fact that Brock Purdy was as good as he was last year without a real offseason because he was rehabbing from an elbow injury. And not an elbow injury, was rehabbing from major elbow surgery. And this offseason, he actually got to work on being a quarterback. So maybe Brock Purdy just takes a leap this year into the no more questions. He's a top 6-7 guy in the league. And as long as the Niners have him, they're going to be really, really hard to beat. That's all very much on the table for sure.
I mean, you have him thrown for almost 5,000 yards and 38 touchdowns. So that's.
You know what? Fuck it. Brock Purdy's going to win MVP.
It's like 48 minutes to get there, but we're there.
Yeah. All right, fine. Hey, I needed to say.
The Niners are definitely winning the division in that case. Brock Purdy's not winning MVP if they're a wild card team. So
scratch the Rams thing. We'll cut that out in post. Just interject the Purdy MVP thing. Run that back. Fit that. Okay.
Say
perfect.
Like the Rams will win 12 games, but be the 5 seed.
Yeah, for sure. Hey, I have one more written down, but I definitely I'm realizing now I should have said this one way earlier.
Okay.
You know what? Actually, I'm not even going to say it anymore because it feels so silly at this point. So I'm done. I have nothing else.
You can't do that. No, what is it?
I think Jordan Mason's going to have like 600 rushing yards.
Okay.
All right, there it is.
Why would you hold that one back?
Because after we just went through like, oh man, the Niners, and could they win? The vision's going to be so good, and oh hey, Brock's going to win MVP, and this and that, and then like, oh, hey, I think Jordan Mason's going to be a really nice number 2 running back.
Big picture.
Yeah.
Okay. I think the Niners are going 12-5, and they're going to be the 2 seed. They're going to miss out on the 1 seed.
Okay. I dig it.
I think there's going to be. I just think there's gonna be a little bit of attrition, Christian McCaffrey might, they might be without a couple guys, or they might, get like a rainy game like they had in Cleveland last year, while they were also missing some guys, or had guys leaving early in that game. I just, it's an older roster, and I just think, a younger team like the Packers or the Lions is probably more likely to get the 1 seed because they have, there's something about the come up where, like the Niners in 2019, there was just so much energy that you're so excited to be the number 1 seed, and then you kind of lose some of that energy as you go into the playoffs and potentially a Super Bowl run. Whereas
Mhm.
I think the Niners are like, they'll obviously really want the 1 seed. Kind of talking out both sides of my mouth because I didn't want to
I've
pick
already
the
done
Rams
that.
for the
We're good.
division
It's a
because
theme for the show.
I didn't I didn't want to pick I didn't want to pick against the Niners because I would be predicting injuries, but I'm kind of picking them to be the 2 seed because I just think it's extremely difficult to continue being the 1 seed when you have much younger and sort of similarly talented teams in Detroit and Green Bay.
Mhm.
So I think one of those teams will be the 1 seed. Niners will be the 2 seed. And I guess we can. I'm going to reserve my playoff predictions until the postseason. I don't want to make any because I think Niners fans will appreciate this. I think the last couple of years I did predict them to win the Super Bowl, and
Mhm.
obviously they haven't yet. So if I refrain from picking them to win the Super
Yeah.
Bowl this year, Niners fans, our listeners should feel better about it. That's just me trying to pander to the people.
I love that for you. That's great. You know what? Hey, since we're here, they're going 3-14.
Okay.
Just we're zagging. Anything else?
Is there any scenario Kyle Shanahan gets fired? Would it be a 3-14 season for Kyle Shanahan to get the door?
Hmm.
Or
Nah.
if they went 3-14, would it be like, all right, next year, like that was a blip next
Yeah.
year. If it
Yeah.
sucks, then you're getting the door. Okay.
It's dude. We get so wrapped up as sports fans in the rings or you suck culture.
Right.
What Kyle Shanahan has done with the 49ers since taking over in 2017 is fucking remarkable. They've been good since 2019. Do you know how long ago 2019 was? And they've just been Super Bowl contenders every year since, save for 2020 when a bunch of dudes got hurt. He's not. No. If they went 3-14, it would 100% be because they faced a bunch of attrition. Or not attrition. You just said that word and it was stuck in my head. A bunch of adversity that is out of his
Mm-hmm.
hands. And unless Fred Warner and Nick Bosa and George Kittle and Christian McCaffrey and Brock Purdy all go into John Lynch's office and say, "Hey, we're not playing for that dude anymore," which I don't think would happen. Kyle Shanahan is going to be around. I think they could go 0-17, and I think Kyle Shanahan would still be the coach next year.
I think Kyle Shanahan, in terms of the way some people talk about him, is a victim of his own success in the sense that, like, all right, if Kyle Shanahan like won one playoff game or went to the divisional round every year and had like a nice team, but the expectations weren't super high, then like, all right, he'd be kind of, a middling coach who everyone kind of liked and et cetera, et cetera. But he
Mm-hmm.
gets to the Super Bowl, right? And then loses in the Super Bowl. And, some people talk about him as like a complete failure when it's like, all right, I get it. If it's Super Bowl or failure and that's your expectation, fine.
Mm-hmm.
But if you look in aggregate of like his level of success versus just about every other coach in the NFL, save for Andy Reid, he's fine. So if that's the way you operate in terms of the way you evaluate coaches, the only
Mm-hmm.
coach worth having a job at this point is Andy Reid because everyone else is not as good as Andy Reid, and Andy Reid's the
Yep.
only one winning Super Bowls.
Yep.
So
Because it's Patrick Mahomes.
so maybe Jed York needs to smarten up and hire Andy Reid. What are you doing, Jed?
Why didn't they fire Kyle Shanahan to immediately hire Steve Spagnuolo?
Wow, great
This
question.
is just poor management. Yeah, no, I don't.
Great question.
Niners beat the Jets.
Um, yeah, I think it's gonna be a very uncomfortable game, but I think they're going to. Like, I could see the Niners being like down 14 at halftime and then kind of clawing back,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe winning late. I don't envision a scenario where it looks like week 1 last year where they just dominated the Steelers.
Yeah, me neither.
I think the Jets are very, very talented. You look at that roster, like it's a very, very talented roster.
Yeah.
And I think Jeff Ulbricht's a really good defensive coordinator. I think that's why the 49ers tried to hire him. I think Aaron Rodgers with Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson those are two like elite players at their positions. And I think their offensive line is better. I don't know if their offensive line is great, but it's certainly better than it was. So I think there's a chance that it's uncomfortable from the standpoint of, like they're a team that, aside from Hassan Reddick, had a pretty straightforward August, where the Niners August was kind of all over the place, it felt like. So I think the Niners win, but I think it's going to be uncomfortable. I don't think the Niners are going to steamroll them.
Yeah, I think I'm there too. I think that there's going to be a locking in a way that their experience over the last handful of years is going to allow them to do and kind of shake off whatever fog was lingering from the Brandon Ayuk, Trent Williams situations. Yeah, I do think they win. I do think it's going to be close though. And the Jets have a good team, to be sure. But the Niners, just when push comes to shove, they're more talented. I'm also I don't know what to expect out of Aaron Rodgers, but I'm just kind of down on the idea of a 41-year-old coming back from an Achilles injury and just automatically being an MVP candidate again. So I'm interested to see how that looks.
Yeah, he's a quarterback, not a receiver, so.
What?
I think of any position in football where you could come back from an Achilles, I think quarterback is probably the easiest one.
Yeah, but I also think that Tom Brady has warped our idea of how quarterbacks age.
Sure.
And
I saw Aaron Rodgers playing golf in Tahoe. He looks like he's exercising.
You think he can still play?
Yeah, we'll see.
We will.
I think
we will see Monday night.
Monday night. Can't wait. We're gonna have actual football to talk about. I love podcasting, but my least favorite part of it is like when you get to that midpoint in training camp where you're like, God, I'm so tired of talking about the offseason and so tired of talking about training camp that all I really want to do is watch a game and talk about the game. That's my favorite part about podcasting. And we finally have a chance to do that. After all of this, it feels great.
It's gonna be fantastic. I'm really, really excited about it. I never checked the line on this game.
Niners by 4, I believe.
4?
Yeah.
Give me the Jets and the points. 4.5 on BetMGM. Holy
4.5.
smokes! I'm going Jets plus 4.5 under the 44.
Okay, I like that. Niners straight up. Jets cover.
Niners 21. No, that's not right. Niners 20, Jets 17. I feel great about that.
That's a very 2013 Niners score.
Yeah, it is. I feel good about it. Jake Moody, game-winning field goal. Book it.
All right, we will talk to you guys after the game, and we hope everyone enjoys. Everyone has a good weekend. Everyone enjoys Sunday football. It's going to be great to not have a Niners game on Sunday. Just kind of absorb what's happening throughout the league. That'll be fun. We'll talk to you guys later. Subscribe, rate, and review. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Please give us a like. Please give us a notification. Hit the notification bell so you know when our videos post. Leave some comments. Leave some takes. Let us know how you feel about our takes. It all helps the channel. And we will talk to you guys later on. Enjoy your weekends.